everyone, and welcome back. So I want to do a just sort of a fun video. There's not too much basis in this one. Very much a rumor, highly speculation on my part, more of a what if kind of scenario. Now it is slightly based in something that I did hear, but obviously I have no inside knowledge or anything, and for all I know, even what I heard was not correct. With the coming of the 4K release of Creepshow from Scream Factory, now coming out in June, of course, a lot of you have kind of wondered about Creepshow 2. Could we get a 4K release of that? And the answer is actually yes. And it's possible we may even get it sooner rather than later. I actually did see something not too long ago that there was a claim that a new 4K scan was being done for Creepshow 2. Now, as far as who's doing it and who would be releasing it, not 100% sure yet, or whether or not this is even true, but still, there was kind of enough there where I kind of feel like it could very well be true. And if we do get a 4K release, well, then who would be putting it out? And there are two very good possibilities. Obviously, anyone could do it. I mean, I have no clue. But the two very good possibilities, because this thing stems from, this was part of like the New World Pictures library back in, when did it come out? 1986? Now, since then, the rights to that whole library have been kind of gone, because a lot of these companies that were around, years ago and no longer, obviously they get bought out and people own them. And in some cases, sometimes even distributors like have the rights to films for only so long, and then they revert back to like the original producer. There's, so many, when it comes to rights for a lot of films, especially low budget and independent films, it can be kind of tricky because you don't really know like who owns what, and it can get, especially over time, you can have companies that, bought out libraries and somebody buys them out and they, somebody else buys, it can like get very complicated very, very fast. So in the case of Creepshow 2, like for example, I don't know what the deal is there. There's so many possibilities. Obviously Arrow had put out their Blu-ray version a couple years ago, and that was a fantastic release for the most part. It had one major issue, which I'll get to in just a second. Now, I don't remember all the specifics, but I want to say the company that had a lot of the titles from that library was like Lakefront, Lakeshore, or something like that, and they were licensing them out to Arrow at the time, for example. Now, I don't know whether or not that license still exists. I don't even know if the company that did own them even has them anymore. I have no clue. Now, is that something that Arrow could still have the rights to, or maybe renew the rights to? Yes, and hopefully if they do put out Creepshow 2, that would be fantastic. A nice 4K release, and hopefully then they can also fix the framing error that they had on the Blu-rays. A lot of those New World Pictures films that Arrow had put out around that same time, most of them had horrible framing issues. They were framed basically too far to the left. So you were seeing information that you were not supposed to see. They were actually supposed to be framed out. I mean, it was Creepshow 2. There was, I think, The Stuff, Larry Cohen's The Stuff, I think was one. The House movies, definitely. There were a couple other ones that I'm blanking on at the moment. I think out of those, like The Stuff was the least problematic. I think outside of just being misframed, but you never saw anything that you weren't supposed to see technically. In the case of the House movies and in the case of Creepshow 2, you were seeing stuff. You were actually seeing like either, lighting equipment, like you see a light stand or something, or in some cases you were seeing crew members. I think in the first House, for example, you were seeing, I think, moment where I think you see like the sound guy or something holding a boom pole. I know in the fourth House film, I think there's a moment where I think you see the script supervisor sitting at a table, off in the corner, which again, you weren't supposed to see. A couple errors in the case of Creepshow 2. In the first story, Old Chief Woodenhead, there's a couple shots where you see on the left side, you see part of the matte box, or not the matte box, the sunshade, which again, you're not supposed to see. It's supposed to be out of frame, but you do see it. Now, I think in one case you don't really notice it, but in another case, because it's a dolly shot and it's moving, it becomes obvious. The worst one is actually during the raft, kind of later in the story where the girl has her shirt pulled up and the guy's taking advantage of a moment. Because you're seeing the left part of the frame that you're not supposed to see, you actually see a hand holding up her shirt, which is just like, it's because you're looking at it and you're kind of wondering like, why did no one notice that? At least, that like the framing's off. And that was an issue that was never addressed and never fixed. So obviously if they do a 4K release, I would assume that they would give it the proper framing. Because again, it's a shame because everything else about their Blu-ray release was fantastic. Like outside of the framing issues, the look of the film, as far as the color and everything, looks so good. It had great sound, had nice assortment of extras. So again, I mean, they would do a nice job with the 4K as long as they could get the, the framing correct. So that's one possibility. Another possibility, which I've heard, which is interesting and is a possibility, but again, I don't know, would actually be Vinegar Syndrome, because Vinegar Syndrome has actually put out a couple films from that same library. In fact, what was the ones last year? Dead Heat? The 4K release Dead Heat, like that's one from that library, I believe. And there were a couple other ones. So could they be putting it out in 4K? And that could be one that could be maybe like an October, November release from them. Could be, because again, last year we got Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. That was, I think, their big October release. And then obviously this past January, From Beyond. I mean, now those two films are not from that library. I'm just kind of mentioning those as far as films that are a little bit more, popular, more well-known that they're starting to put out here and there. So could they be doing Creepshow too? Maybe. I would love that. Have them give their amazing quality stamp to it. So we'll see. I mean, could this be coming this year? It is a very good possibility. Again, the thing I did see that there was a new scan being done seemed far more credible than not. So then, my speculation comes, well, then who would be doing it? And obviously, yes, it could be anyone. Those two companies kind of make the most sense to me. So I don't know. I just figured I'd do a video on this because I know a lot of us do want Creepshow 2 in 4K. As much as the original Creepshow is one of my favorite films, I love Creepshow 2 and would definitely love a 4K release of it. So hopefully we do get some news on that. Hopefully someone is working on it, and maybe that is something that we could get later this year. So just a fun speculation video on my part, but hopefully, hopefully it is something that comes true. So let me know your thoughts, and as always, thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next one.